Hi everyone, my name is Angie and this is me, my natural habitat. Welcome to 2023 and Happy Lunar New Year to those who celebrate it. Now, today's project was actually filmed in two parts. The first part was done in September last year, so like a few months ago, and then the second part was finished like a few days ago. So we have two computers that we bought back in 2020 and 2021 from this company that custom make PCs for consumers, but they also have like off-the-shelf towers that you can just buy from them. So back then, I haven't gotten down the rabbit hole spiral of building my own computer. So we didn't know much about PC. So we just saw something decent, decided that it might be able to fit what we need, asked them for some recommendations, and then we just got them. So we got one first, and then like almost a year later, we got our second one. And then I went down the spiral of researching about keyboards and PC, and then building my own, and then building the Threadripper, right? So we realized that we want to upgrade these two computers that we have. So we thought it would be simple change, right? Because we needed basically we needed a second machine that can take in another capture card, like a PCIe capture card. And then we realized that it's not possible on this motherboard because they didn't give us a full size ATX motherboard. It was an ITX motherboard. I mean, it's listed in the product description, but back then we didn't know what it was. So now we kind of understand why everything was so cheap. So it was a ITX motherboard, meaning the last slot of the PCIe that's on the motherboard is only like a PCIe Gen 3, like a one lane kind. So it was very limiting on what I could do with the motherboard. So we thought, okay, that's a simple enough fix, right? Just get a new motherboard and then replace everything into the new motherboard basically, and then it should work, right? And then I found out that I don't know why Intel does this, but like they change the socket every few generations of their CPU. Like, why? If I want to upgrade my CPU, I need to upgrade a whole motherboard with it. I mean, kind of solve the hardware compatibility issues, but AMD can do it for the Ryzen CPUs and have the same socket for, I think, Ryzen 5, 7, and 9 are all the same. I'm making a wild guess here. Why can't you do that? And it's not like you have a new version every few years, you know. You have one version every year, or more than that, or more frequent than that. So like every 2 years, if I want to upgrade my PC, I need to change motherboard. That was really strange to me, because so these CPUs are actually Intel i7 10th generation CPUs. So we're on the LGA1200 socket. So when we were looking for a new motherboard, we thought like, why not just go for like the latest, you know, like the most upgraded, updated one. Then we can use it for, meaning it will last longer as well on the hardware, in terms of hardware lifespan. But no, the new one does not fit our CPU. And then we considered, do we want to change out the CPU to a newer one as well, and then just replan everything else. But then that's another additional expense. And then that was after realizing that the current chassis does not fit the ATX motherboard, so we have to get a new chassis as well. So everything kind of made sense after I opened up the computer and realized that okay, this is where all the costs are being reduced lah. And then in addition, when we got these computers, they do not come with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. So we had to ask them to either add in the Wi-Fi dongle, like an additional dongle that was plugged in onto the motherboard, or we just got our own like Bluetooth USB dongles ourselves. But motherboards with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi built-in is so common nowadays. Like how can you function without Wi-Fi and Bluetooth these days? Everything is Bluetooth, wireless. So we got so in the end we went for the Gigabyte Aerials Masters, the Z590 motherboard. It comes with a 10 gig LAN port, which is helpful for what we need, because we do a lot of editing on these machines as well. So having higher internet speed means we could transfer files faster. I mean, that's of course limited by the cables that we use, but at least the option is there, you know. And then also for when we are using them for our shows, internet is important, definitely, because like we are still quite heavy on live streaming, so having that is definitely useful. So the first PC was done back in September. I recorded the whole upgrade in a time lapse. I was very confused with the CPU cooler because this was the first Intel machine that I've touched. So I did not comprehend why like I needed an extra bracket from the back of the motherboard to secure the CPU cooler when AMD I could just secure it directly onto the motherboard. I mean, I guess it is extra reinforcement, but I don't understand why. Now, installing the CPU was also really nerve-wracking because unlike AMD where like it kind of sits into the socket itself, whereby the CPU, I forgot which side, but one side has all the pins and one side has all the ports, and you just line it up and you will just sit in. This one is purely based on touch, so the underside of the CPU is flat. So I just have to put it there and then like squish it down with like a metal cover kind of thing. And then in my head it's just like, what if when I'm pushing down the bracket, the CPU shifts a little bit and now the pins are connected to the wrong connectors, then what? But it's like me overthinking, you know, but there's that fear that something like that is gonna happen. The RAM that came with the PC is a total 16 gig RAM, so each stick is 8 gig, just bare RAM sticks. There's nothing fancy to it. Like nowadays when you buy like a RAM, it comes with like RGB. I mean, the one I have comes with RGB, very nicely like packaged with enclosure and everything, but this is just the PCB by itself. And then the GPU we had was the Zotac 2060 Super. Before I went down my trail of my own PC, we thought that okay, 2060 seems fine. Zotac seems like a common brand, right? Like alongside Asus, MSI, that kind. So we thought that it was okay, but I think, I'm not sure if this is true for all the versions of GPU, but when I was researching GPU for my PC, the 3070, Zotac had one of the worst like heat dissipating issues. Like the general temperature that the GPU run is a lot higher than the other brands. I'm not sure if this is the case for every version of GPU, but this is a 2-fan GPU, so compared to a 3-fan, I would assume that you have lesser airflow to help you get rid of the extra heat, so it kind of makes sense. But it works, so that's fine. And then for the chassis, for the first computer, we got the Corsair 4000 airflow. Then for the second one, we got the Fractal Design Focus 2, I think. I think the Corsair didn't come with any fans, or like there was only like one fan inside for the rear. So I actually took out the fan from the original chassis of the PC and then repurposed them into the Corsair. But I think the Fractal Design came with frontal fans, so I just had to repurpose the top fan as well as the rear fans into the Fractal Design chassis. But other than that, everything went quite smoothly. I did almost forget some stuff, I think. So like I forgot to put in the NVMe disk both times. Oh, then this was the other part. You know how like for most motherboard, the NVMe sits underneath like a cover, like this, usually like a fancy cover that they make, and then they put a branding on it, and you just have to like unscrew with like 2 screws. For the ITX motherboard, it doesn't come like that. So what the company did was they added like a, what do you call it? A heat sink? No, I forgot what's it called, but basically like the radiator material, and then they paste like a heat thermal paste underneath, and they just stuck it onto the NVMe disk, and it's held in with 2 rubber bands on 2 ends, which I thought was really strange. And the whole like config that they made was just slotted into the M.2 slot and secured with one screw. I thought that was really strange because I'm so used to like taking out the cover and having the thermal paste at the back of the cover that you have to like peel off, and everything is like done up nicer in a way. Like it's a lot more well packaged compared to what I saw on the ITX board. I'm not sure if it's the ITX thing. I mean, it could be because like, I don't see any way that you can fasten a cover on the ITX motherboard. But I also don't know enough about ITX, so let me know. I also struggled with trying to understand how do I get the Windows license key out, because it's not a brand new build, right? Like I don't need to buy my own license and then install, create my own installer, install. So technically, you could just install back everything, and then it will try and trigger the Windows repair software, and it will try and trigger the Windows repair client because it does detect that you have a Windows installed in your M.2 drive, provided that you put back the same NVMe disk that was in the previous computer. So I put it back, and it triggered the repair system. It triggered the repair client, and basically there's an option there that you can say that I recently changed hardware on my system. I don't have a product key, and they will still try and repair the Windows OS files so that you can start up the computer. And then once everything is set up, you set up your account, you set up the basic settings, they will prompt you in the system settings to activate your Windows. And then you can either enter a product key or log into your Microsoft account if you have a digital license. So we have digital licenses, so that's what I did. So that whole process was quite fast free. I mean, the first time I'm doing this, definitely there was like a little bit of like freaking out, like, am I doing everything correctly? Like, what if something gets spoiled, you know? But I cleared out all the data in the computer first. So it was fine if I had to reformat the disk and do a brand new install of Windows. I do have a Windows installer on a thumb drive that I could use if I had to do that. For the fractal design, the thing I didn't understand was why is the USB-C port on the front I/O an upgrade? Like they built the port there, they just covered it up with like a piece of metal. If you want, it's like a $25 to buy the USB port as well as the cable to connect to the motherboard. So like, I don't get why can't you just like put it into your chassis by default. What second thing that I didn't understand was why, like, what's with this new magnetic dust filter thing that comes with every chassis? I have it on the Corsair, and then I thought it was just a Corsair thing because they made it really fancy. There's like a tab at the bottom for you to remove the filter easily that has their branding on it. So I thought it was a Corsair thing. And then we got a fractal design chassis, and it has the same magnetic filter on top. The fractal design one was actually a little bit better because the magnet is a little bit stronger. It was harder to move the filter if I was like moving the chassis around. The Corsair one was really, really easy for the filter to come off. And I don't understand why and when did this become a thing? I posted it on my socials, and my friend was like, I love it. I bought a whole row of it. I'm like, I mean, I could see it if you're using it at home, but I don't get. I just don't understand this trend. So anyway, the Corsair machine had no issues. It could start up straight away after I replaced all the hardware. I did have a little bit of issue with the fractal design, but that was, I think, my own fault because I overlooked it. So the motherboard config is a little bit different. So usually you have 4 slots for RAM, right? And then 2 is for channel A, 2 is for channel B. And usually you'll populate channel A1 and B1 first. But it's apparently not the case for the Z590 Aerios Master. You populate the A2 and the B2 channel first. So when I was building the Corsair PC, I think I was following the manual a lot more frequently. So it started up straight away. But for the fractal design one, I wasn't looking at the manual. I was basically complacent. I thought I had built enough computers at this point to know what was going on. So I placed the RAM in slot A1 and B1, and there was no startup. Everything lit up, motherboard lit up, all the fans are spinning, the fans RGB are lit, but I was not getting a display. So I didn't understand why until like I just went back into the manual, double checked everything, and then I realized that, oh, because the RAM are in the wrong slot. So I replaced those, and at the same time I flashed the BIOS to the latest version, and then everything powered on again. So that was great. And then my next issue was the motherboard's first M.2 slot was actually broken. So it couldn't detect the boot drive because my NVMe was attached to that slot, which was a bit strange because when it first booted up after I placed the RAM in the correct slots, I did see a Windows bootable device in the BIOS, but it disappeared by itself. I don't know what happened to it. And then subsequently, I just could not get the first M.2 slot to detect my NVMe again. It works in the other two slots, so we are sending that particular motherboard back for RMA. We're checking our options. But now everything works, everything is set up. The only annoying thing is we have to reinstall all our softwares. After all that tinkering with the computers, I am now nicknamed the Simlim Square of the company. For my Singaporean viewers, you know what Simlim Square is. For the international viewers, so Simlim Square is a shopping mall in Singapore, where it's like the hub of all the tech stuff. So you can buy computers there, you can repair your computers and phones and iPads, you can buy your spare parts, you can buy like hard drives, router, anything tech for household you can find there. Some even non-household stuff you can maybe potentially find there as well, like CCTVs, like the business level CCTVs, servers, data servers, all those. So I'm now nicknamed the Simlim Square of the office. I can consider that as a retirement job now. So I hope you enjoyed the video today. The setup looks a little bit different. I do have that video planned for the next month, so I hope to see you there, and hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you in the next one.